So, welcome. My name is Pablo Turati, and I'm going to be presenting this week's talk about um, Lightning Talk for Nolte, and and we're going to be talking about special topic that I think is very important for every company and pretty much for any group. And before I start, I wanna start off with we're talking about uh, one one small uh, one small piece of text that's very important. It says, "Not finance, not strategy, not technology. It is teamwork that remains the ultimate competitive advantage, both because it is so powerful and also because it is so rare." This comes from Patrick Leoncini's "The Five Dysfunctions of a Team." It's a topic that I think it's very important for every organization, and it's related to how to stop the blame game. The blame game is something that attacks and slows down every team, and I think that we should all be very much aware of it and how to deal with it in any organization. So before we start, let's start off with what's a team. Um, so a team is a group of individuals. It could be human or not human, according to the dictionary, working together to achieve a common goal. Members with complementary skills that generate synergy through a coordinated effort. And this coordinated effort, allows each member to maximize their strengths and to minimize their weaknesses. And all of this is obviously to achieve that common goal. And well, the team is pretty much the base of any human endeavor. So it is something that's really relevant and important. So why team matters? If you could get all the people in your organization, it could be a company, it could be a team, it could be a church, it could be pretty much any organization, rowing in the same direction. You could dominate any industry in any market against any competition at any time. So that's something that's really powerful. The other day, I was reading about this enormous company, this very big company where um, this text was actually read to them and to the directives of that company, and they were all nodding in approving of it, but not really knowing how to do this, how to get everybody on board and rowing in the same direction. So it's simple, right? Or is it? Well, it is simple in terms of how to do it. If you follow a certain patterns to create a team, theoretically, it's possible, and those patterns are actually not difficult. They're pretty much easier to understand. The problem is that you are dealing with imperfect humans or robots, and are therefore, as imperfect humans, are therefore inherently dysfunctional. So something that's really simple to explain, something that's really simple to understand, is actually somewhat difficult to uh, to recreate. So are we doomed? I don't think so. In fact, building a strong team is possible, but it takes hard work. It comes down to mastering a set of behaviors that are at once uncomplicated, but they are difficult to put to practice day after day after day. So it's also something that's related to discipline and to hard work. So let's talk about what's an effective team, or maybe more precisely, a coherent team. A team that works, they trust each other. That's really important because trust is what actually brings out healthy conflict. Um, and healthy conflict is very important to generate commitment and accountability, which accountability is the base for bringing out the results. So a team that can be effective, an effective team, has to have trust, for it to work. Now let's talk about the blame game, since after all that's the main subject of this talk. The blame game is basically what happens when there's something that goes wrong. Maybe you've I don't know, maybe you've played with your friends when you were little, and something went wrong. Somebody got hurt. You were rough playing, and well, whose fault is it? And fingers just start pointing in that direction. Um, and nobody's to blame according to the children. And that's pretty much the blame game. The only problem is that it also happens to adults. So adults, we tend to do the same thing, especially in organizations, um, where nobody wants to be the guy to blame. And so, I mean, this happens to pretty much every single company. Um, Very recently, I was watching a debate where there was a Senate inquiry for a Gulf oil spill, and it seemed that nobody was to blame. So, what's the problem with it? At first, it looks harmless. I mean, it's just nobody wants to get blamed for anything. But there's a deep problem with the blame game. People who blame others for their mistakes, they tend to lose status, they learn less, and they actually perform worse relative to those who own up to their mistakes. So that's something very important. Also for the organizations and groups and teams, this doesn't just apply to individuals. It also applies to organizations and groups and also teams. So a rampant culture of blame results in serious disadvantages when it comes down to creativity, learning, innovation, and well, productive risk taking. Nobody wants to run. Nobody wants to risk anything because nobody wants to have to carry the weight of being the guy to blame. So it becomes sort of an infection, a germ, we could say, that spreads. Um, and the goal about about working to reduce the blame game is affected because people observe others protecting their own egos. So it's something that it spreads in the organization. So how do we fix it? Um, well, the base for fixing the blame game to ending it is that we as a team or as a leader of a team, most importantly, we need to create a culture of psychological safety. So that's one of the most important bases when you're building a team and you're part of a team, that you continuously work in actually creating and generating the conditions for psychological safety for all the members. And how does the psychological safety work? Well, basically what it has to happen is that people shouldn't blame others for their mistakes. And that's probably the base of it. If you do something wrong, you have to own it. And when sometimes, I mean, it can get to the point where you do have to blame somebody. And when you do have to blame somebody, it has to be done constructively. um, Constructively meaning it shouldn't be demising the person. It should be more about bringing out the learnings about the error and how to get things right and how to avoid making the same mistake again. And it should always be in a culture of respect and acknowledging the learning. So we can do this by setting an example, taking ownership for failures. That's something that's very important, not only for the for every single member of the team, but also for the team leader. Um, Always focusing on learning. And some companies they've actually implemented some strategies to reward people for actually making mistakes, which can be productive. Not that you want to incentivize mistakes, but rather because you want the learnings to come out and to avoid further mistakes. And that's something that can be very powerful. Um, in short, as I was mentioning, the only way to reduce the blame game in a company and hopefully get rid of it is actually by owning whatever gets wrong. Um, so that's pretty much the end of that. I want to leave you with one final thought. What can you do today to help stop the spread of the blame game in your organization? If anybody has any questions, I'm looking to answer them. Gerardo, he's asking, can you give an example of non-human team? A computer is part of a team. I believe if that's the case, it's easy to blame non-humans for every failure, and no one's going to own any action. Yeah, that's a good question. That's the non-human part is actually it's actually a joke. It comes from the definition of a team. I mean, there are many definitions of a team. There are many definitions of what's an effective team, what's a coherent team, and so those definitions can sometimes be a little funny because it's I mean it hasn't gotten to the point where we actually have robots working for us. I've got Adam Fenton asking, as a leader, how can I get feel for how healthy my team is? Well, that's a good question. I think that actually, I think that Adam, you could probably answer that question better than I could, since you're a much greater team leader than I am. I'm mostly part of a team, but I guess I can answer in terms of not actually a team leader, but part of being somebody that's part of a team. I think that a way to measure it and I don't know if this could be quantifiable, but one way of measuring could be getting a feel of whenever there's a mistake, getting a feel of how much people are taking accountability for it, and getting the learnings from them. And I guess that's the way you could. I'm sure there are many tools for that, um, but I think that's the way you should do it. And also, I mean, learning about how much people feel that there is a culture of safety in your team and your organization. Um, I also have um, Dwayne Musgrave. He's mentioning that it's a good talk. Any suggestions on building trust so people don't default to the blame game? Well, the blame game is always something that's very tempting to anybody. I mean, it's natural. We don't want to be blamed for anything. Um, but I think that the most important part is building trust with one another in your team. I mean, there are going to be times when somebody around you makes a mistake, and it's very easy to start blaming that person for this or that instead of just going straight to the learnings and to realizing that there was something wrong. So I think that the best thing that one should do as a team member is that one should always head straight to the learnings and to acknowledging what happened. And after that, once that has been acknowledged and the lesson has been learned, I think that you should move on. It shouldn't be something that grows. So that's that. I also have Gerardo saying thank you Gerardo. It's great to have you as a member of the audience. Thank you, Adam. Thank you. I do believe this topic is very important. Um, I'm a web developer. That's something I mentioned on the first slide, and I'm an engineer, and that's very important. It is. I think it's very important for people that work in that sort of fields where we focus mostly on technical aspects to get a familiar feeling of things that are very human like this. So I do feel that this is a very important topic just for anybody working in any organization. Um, I got Mauricio Avalos saying, when you say reward people for making mistakes, do you think this could lead to teammates stop caring about the quality of their work since there are no consequences for their mistakes? I think, yeah. I mean, it could be misleading. Rewarding shouldn't be about, hey, yeah, go ahead and make more mistakes. It should be about evaluating the quality of the mistake, because some mistakes, it's correct, that's correct, could be mistakes due to lack of taking care of the details and lack of effort. I don't think those are mistakes. I think um, those are, perhaps you could call them not skills, but something that people should work on. Instead of mistakes are something that is a problem, inherent problem that we should work on solving, something that's complicated. So I think that when we say reward something for making mistakes, we are actually dealing with something that's complex, and that by fixing, we are going to make our team better, and our product or service or whatever we are working with also better. So I hope that answers that question. I have Joshua Jenks asking, is there anything to gain from most people taking ownership of issues, or does this require buy-in from every single team members um, to work effectively? Um, I'm not sure I understand the question, but um, I guess that uh, sometimes that sometimes risk taking um, can be something that is dangerous, because things can go wrong when you go ahead and take a risk. Things can go wrong, and if people are um, they're afraid of taking those risks out of being blamed for something that could potentially go wrong, then those risks will never be taken, and the problem would be that a team could probably go nowhere in terms of improvement, or achieving something that's great and important. So I think that ownership, saying, listen, I believe this was the best solution, and it turned out it didn't work. I think that's something that's really important. But I think that sometimes also taking the risks, um, it's also something that needs to be done. Preferably if the whole team is working on the same page. They're all believing that whatever action is being done by the whole team is backed up by everybody. So yeah, I think it's a really great subject, and it's something to really think about. Gabriela Suarez is saying, I love this as well. Thanks, Pablo. Thank you, Gabriela. I'm actually, I feel proud to be working on something that's not really my field, but you guys, I appreciate your questions. Gerardo here is saying, I believe that this is something to do with the company taking ownership instead of only most of the team. Yes, I think that this has to be done in every single size. I mean, definitely has to be something that's done on the entire company. But I mean, nothing is made up of something big. It's everything, even even matter is made of atoms. So I think that this has to be done in the team level. Even I could say on the personal level. It starts with you mostly, the person. So if you're taking ownership, and if you're working with these principles and spreading them out, um, I think that we could spread the germ, but instead of the germ of the blame game, it could be the germ of the of accountability, and I think that's the most important thing that we should do as a company. Gerardo is also saying, I personally believe that there must be commitment coming from everybody. Um, yeah, I mean, it starts with you. I would say it starts with you having commitment, and if you're a team leader, it's double the importance, because you have to work on everybody following the principles of trust, healthy conflict, commitment, accountability, and focusing on the results. So, well, if there are no questions, thank you, everybody. This was challenging for me, I have to say, but I appreciate you taking time to watch this session.